Here come the price hikes. And the Consumer Price Index, or as I like to say, the CPI, or the Changing Propaganda Index, will not account for any of this. So the well-known fast casual burger place, Shake Shack, announced recently that they're hiking prices again. This is the third price hike for Shake Shack in the last 12 or so months, and the chief financial officer for Shake Shack also said that due to increasing commodity prices, specifically beef prices, and also how wages are going to be going up in many of their location areas, that this will most likely mean more price hikes in 2022. So there are going to be many other restaurants besides Shake Shack where this is also going to occur, and the Consumer Price Index will account for none of this. Meanwhile, the Wall Street spin that you are hearing from PhD economists, from government economists, from the Federal Reserve people, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Wall Street money managers, is that inflation is starting to cool off. They are saying that the transitory inflation is ending soon in the next month or two, and they're citing that used car prices are falling, and that's what they're citing. They're not talking about how businesses are just starting to hike prices again. And there's countless examples of this. There's toy companies, there's food companies. I could go on and on. It's not just Shake Shack. This is just the latest example. There's many more restaurants that are doing this, that the Consumer Price Index is not accounting for. This is all part of stagflate tax lie. Just like how the Fed says they're going to taper quantitative easing and they're going to hike rates. And we have Congress talking about the next, after passing a 1.2 trillion infrastructure, and I'm using air quotes, Congress talking about passing another 3.5 trillion plan that's just going to be even more waste, fraud, corruption, and abuse. The majority of the funds are going to be stolen or misused, just like how all the other infrastructure bills for the last 20 or 30 years have been pretty much misused. There's been very few instances where the infrastructure funds have actually been properly used. And then in the last 24 hours, the Producer Price Index had a big jump. On an annualized amount, the Producer Price Index is showing that the inflation for producer prices and costs going up for Producer Price Index would be 12% or higher. But we have Wall Street money managers and PhD economists and government economists and politicians talking about how transitory inflation is cooling off. It's all spin. Peter Schiff used to have a podcast called Wall Street Unspun. That is accurate. A lot of the stuff coming out of the government economists, especially people here in DC and on Wall Street, is 100% spin and 100% false narratives. Or they take tiny amounts of facts and then spin them into false narratives. So there will be a lot more price hikes coming. People will have to grow their income. Stagflate tax lie is going to get worse. There's tons of examples of people's taxes going up too. And the Consumer Price Index, which supposedly measures inflation here in the United States, is a total joke. It is complete and total propaganda. It is a CP lie, as I said earlier, or a changing propaganda index. So with the Consumer Price Index up, 5.4% now so far this year, they're going to have to change it. It's showing too much inflation. It doesn't fit the narrative. And the narrative is that there's deflation, and our overlords at the Fed, our overlords in DC, in Congress, and our overlords on Wall Street have to fight this evil deflation boogeyman with more currency devaluation and trillions more in government spending and new programs. Finally, if you like content like this and want to help keep content like this free so it doesn't all end up behind a paywall, or you want far more in-depth content, research, financial education, and analysis than I provide in these free videos, and there are a lot more in-depth articles behind the paywall. There are 180 articles, charts, and audio podcasts behind the paywall on global macro, companies and sectors, gold mining, silver mining, precious metal royalty and streaming companies. I think there was just a big dividend increase of about 50%, I think, of one of our precious metal royalty and streaming companies that I really, really like, along with a lot of other analysis on companies and sectors behind the paywall. There are 24 new Patreon articles out in the last 9 or 10 weeks, all for only $5 a month, the cost of a Starbucks cup of coffee. I charge less than anyone else in the space for premium content. I think you're really going to like it. If you don't like it, you can cancel, but I think it's one of the best deals out there. So unfortunately, the reality is getting worse for the average everyday American. Their living expenses, their cost of living is going up. So those PhD economists and government officials at the Bureau of Labor Statistics and at the Federal Reserve who are saying that the inflation for 2021 is all transitory, they're going to be paying more money for their Shake Shack burgers when they go and eat at the Shake Shack locations here in the Washington, D.C. area or in New York City. So they're going to be paying substantially more money for their food. There's 3 price hikes now in 12 months with more price hikes coming, while they crank out with these false formulas and their economic propaganda that inflation is cooling off or there is no inflation. It must be nice to make a much higher income and not have to worry about your bills going up like that, which is what a lot of the liars on Wall Street and deflationistas have, and government officials here in DC. They make so much income that they don't care if they have to pay 15, 20%, 30% for their everyday living expenses going up because they have so much money coming in from crooked deals or investments.